The storm was pounding against the old wooden door when the single father heard the knock that would change his life forever. He opened it expecting another bill collector, another problem, another reminder that life had become a battle he could barely survive. But standing outside in the rain was a woman in an expensive coat, a woman whose face appeared on business magazines and television screens around the world. She was a billionaire, one of the most powerful women in the country. Yet she stood there with tears in her eyes and whispered words that made him freeze. "I've come to repay what your father did for me." Before we begin this emotional story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of a good heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel Heart Kindness Story. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories like this to life. The man standing at the doorway was named Cashin Vale. Years ago, he had dreamed of becoming an architect, someone who would design beautiful homes where families could create memories. But dreams often disappear when life demands sacrifice. After losing his wife, Maribel, to a sudden illness, Cashin's entire world changed overnight. He was left alone with his young daughter, Arya, and a mountain of responsibilities that seemed impossible to climb. Every morning before sunrise, Cashin woke up in their small apartment, packed Arya's lunch, helped her prepare for school, and then rushed to work at a construction site where he spent long hours carrying heavy materials. His hands were rough, his clothes were worn, and his body was exhausted, but he never allowed his daughter to see how difficult things were. To Arya, her father was the strongest person in the world. She didn't know that sometimes he skipped meals so she could have enough food. She didn't know he repaired his old shoes with glue because buying new ones meant less money for her school supplies. She only knew that every night, when she fell asleep, her father sat beside her bed and promised that someday their life would become better. But Cashin's life had not always been filled with struggle. When he was younger, he had a father named Rowan Vale, a quiet man who believed that helping others was more important than collecting wealth. Rowan was not rich. He worked as a mechanic in a small neighborhood garage. He didn't own expensive things, but he had a heart that was worth more than any fortune. Cashin remembered his father saying, "A person's true value is not measured by what they keep, but by what they give when they have nothing to spare." Those words stayed with him, especially after Rowan passed away. What Cashin didn't know was that his father's kindness had touched a life far beyond their small town. The woman standing at his door that rainy evening was named Serafina Loron. She was the founder of a global technology company and one of the youngest billionaires in the world. Newspapers described her as brilliant, fearless, and unstoppable. People admired her success, but almost nobody knew the painful story hidden behind her achievements. 20 years earlier, Serafina was not a billionaire. She was a frightened teenager who had lost everything. After her mother died, Serafina ran away from a broken home, carrying only a small bag and a few coins. She spent nights sleeping at bus stations and hiding from the cold. She believed the world had forgotten her. One night, during a heavy winter storm, she collapsed near Rowan's garage. Most people walked past her. Some ignored her. But Rowan saw a scared young girl sitting alone in the freezing rain. He didn't ask for anything in return. He didn't judge her. He simply opened the garage door and told her she could stay warm. That night, Rowan gave her food, a blanket, and a place to sleep. But the greatest gift he gave her was hope. He listened to her dreams. He told her that her past did not decide her future. Before she left, he gave her his old notebook filled with advice and sketches from his younger days. On the first page, he wrote one sentence. "Never forget that someone's kindness can become the reason another person survives." Those words became the foundation of Serafina's entire life. She worked harder than anyone around her. She studied, built a company from nothing, and eventually became one of the wealthiest people on earth. But through every success, she carried one memory in her heart, the old mechanic who saved her when she had nothing. For years, she searched for Rowan. She wanted to thank him. She wanted to repay him. But when she finally found him, she discovered that he had already passed away. That was when she learned about Cashin. She discovered that Rowan had left behind a son who was living a difficult life while raising his daughter alone. Serafina realized something painful. The man who had given her everything had never asked for anything back. Not even from the world. So she came to his son. Cashin stared at her in confusion. He had heard of Serafina Laurent. Everyone had. But he couldn't understand why someone like her was standing in front of his broken apartment. "My father helped you?" Cashin asked. Serafina nodded, holding back tears. "Your father gave me a future when I had no reason to believe I had one. I owe my entire life to him." Cashin looked away, almost embarrassed. "My father was a good man," he said softly. "But he didn't leave behind much." Serafina looked around the small apartment. She saw the cracked walls, the old furniture, and the small drawings Arya had made hanging proudly on the refrigerator. Then she looked back at Cashin. He left behind something much bigger than money. He left behind a lesson that changed the world. Cashin didn't know how to respond. He had spent years fighting alone, and suddenly a stranger wanted to help him because of a kindness he had never even witnessed. At first, Cashin refused. He didn't want charity. He didn't want someone to feel sorry for him. But Serafina smiled and said, "I'm not here because I think you are weak. I'm here because your father taught me that kindness should continue moving forward." Those words stayed in his mind. Over the next few weeks, Serafina quietly changed things in Cashin's life. She offered him a position in her company's design department, not because she felt obligated, but because she saw his talent. She had discovered his old architecture drawings and realized he still had the same passion he had abandoned years ago. Cashin was afraid. He worried he was too old to start again. He worried he would fail. But Serafina reminded him that sometimes people don't lose their dreams. They simply put them away until life gives them another chance. Slowly, Cashin began rebuilding himself. He started designing again. He started believing again. And Arya watched her father transform. The man who used to come home exhausted and silent began laughing more. He began talking about the future. He even built a small wooden model house for Arya, telling her that every family deserved a place filled with love. Months passed. Cashin's designs became popular inside Serafina's company. His ideas were different because they were not created only with numbers and profits in mind. He designed spaces where people could feel safe, connected, and valued. One day, Serafina showed him a new community project. She wanted to build affordable homes for families who were struggling. Cashin looked at the plans and immediately recognized the meaning behind them. "You're building what my father believed in," he said. Serafina smiled. "No," she replied. "We are." The project became a huge success. Thousands of families found homes because of the partnership between the billionaire who remembered kindness and the single father who carried that kindness forward. Years later, Cashin stood at the opening ceremony of the final building. Arya, now older, stood beside him. She looked at her father with pride. The building was named the Rowan Hope Center. Cashin held back tears as he looked at the crowd. He realized something important. His father had not left him wealth. He had left him a legacy. A legacy that traveled from one struggling teenager, to one billionaire, to one single father, and then to thousands of strangers. After the ceremony, Serafina handed Cashin a small, old notebook. It was Rowan's notebook. The same one she had received years ago. Cashin opened it carefully and saw the message written on the first page. Someone's kindness can become the reason another person survives. His eyes filled with tears. Because finally, he understood. Sometimes the smallest acts of goodness are seeds planted in another person's life. We may never see the tree they become, but the shade they provide can last for generations. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to Heart Kindness Story. Your support allows these stories of hope and humanity to reach more people. And before the story ends, I want to ask you something special. Leave a comment with the words, "Kindness always returns," if you believe that a good deed, no matter how small, can change someone's life. Because somewhere in the world, someone may be standing in the rain, waiting for one person to open the door. And sometimes, that one act of kindness becomes the reason they never give up.